Great. Well, hello again. You can say hello back again, by the way, if you want. Thank you. Great. Really excited about sharing some thoughts for you today. There's going to be a whole bunch of different Bible references rather than just one big reading right at the beginning. So they'll all come up on the screen here, or some will, and you'll see why in only a few moments' time. But I want to chat to you about the art of good communication. How many of you know that communication is hard at the best of times? Yeah, I know, I'm married. You would not believe how many times my wife misunderstands me. Yeah, love it. One brave gentleman agreeing with me there. Expect the dig in the ribs a bit later, sir. Oh, she came early doors. Wasn't expecting it that quick. But it is really hard, and it is true, isn't it? Like, I know churches can have splits because of poor communication. I know businesses that have folded because of poor communication. I know relationships that have been really strong and really close have been fractured and broken just because of poor communication. So communication is really hard at the best of times, and sometimes we think we've communicated to people, but we haven't. I was, when I first started out in 1988, for the first sort of 4 or 5 years of my ministry in evangelism, I did a huge amount of school assemblies in Bradford. I did about 60 or 70 school assemblies, sort of twice a term I'd go in. And one particular time I'd finished the assembly, and I was meeting one of the teachers, possibly the head teacher, which was a scary thought then and when I was at school, to be honest with you. And so she said, go into the staff room. I've just got to do something. There's some coffee on. Help yourself. So I went into the staff room, which felt most bizarre. The first time I'd ever gone into a school staff room outside of actually being a student in education. And I sat down in the chair, and I just noticed kind of just in front of me, there was a little poster type thing, and this is what it said. I know you think you understand what you thought I said, but I'm not sure what you think you heard is what I think I said. Not repeating that again. Took a lot to say it the first time. But you get that, don't you? That have you ever had somebody who's taken offense at something that you've said, and you're thinking, no, that's not what I said, or it's not what I meant, but they've heard it differently. And it can be so hard, and sometimes there's no convincing them, is there? Even taking a bit of bread and ribena doesn't sort it out to say. There's sometimes no convincing them. So I think we've got to work really, really hard at communication, and especially the way, those of you who've been on the Christian scene for a long time, how many of you will know that what you used to tell people about Jesus 30, 40 years ago, they no longer even know anymore. You're familiar with that, aren't you? Some of you that have, I'm not saying you've been around for a few, the Lord's been good to you, hasn't he? Okay, but you know that it's like, is this a different world? Does it feel like that sometimes? Just a different world now when it comes to faith. And so I think it's a good thing, isn't it, to pause, to take a moment and say, okay, how do we communicate? How do we stay biblical and not compromise? But how do we communicate? Well, that's what we want to look at this morning. Here's a great Bible verse that when I first started doing my training in evangelism, I came across. And frankly, it stayed with me ever since. Now, my aim this morning isn't to do an in-depth Bible study, by the way. We're starting a Bootcamp light, okay? So I'm not going to start going into Hebrew and all that kind of stuff. If you want to learn the Hebrew, then learn it, okay? But this verse says, and I love it, assemble the people, the men, the women, the children, and the aliens living in your towns. That's not little green men with sort of things on their head. So that they can listen and learn to fear the Lord your God and follow carefully all the words of this law. Now, if we had time to do this, because this is Bootcamp light, which rather suggests there's a Bootcamp heavy. Well, not heavy, but more, I'd break you up into groups and say, what 5 key words jump out of this Bible verse to you? And it's not that you would be wrong, but it would be interesting to see whether your 5 words were the same 5 key words as mine. Here are my 5 key words: assemble, listen, fear, follow. Assemble, listen, learn, fear, follow. Those are my 5 key words. Okay, now I want to just briefly unpack those 5 words by paralleling them with another word. Okay, so assemble. If you want to assemble people, whether it's geographically into an area, or if you've got them in a geographical area, you want to assemble them mentally so that they're connected and attentive, then actually we've got to work hard at getting people's attention. And translate this on a one-on-one, because that's what we're thinking. If I want to connect, assemble the person I want to dialogue with faith about, okay, I have to have their attention. So first question to ask: do your friends and family know that you are a Christian? Number 1. Number 2, is that a good thing? Because actually for a lot of people, their view of Christianity isn't a good one. We have to be realistic that right now in our culture, you mention the word evangelical, immediately people make a massive assumption, don't they, negatively, of what that means. So I tend not to call myself an evangelical Christian, right? Because predominantly it's not biblical anyway, so let's not get hung up about a label that isn't biblical, okay? And I want to connect with people. Does that make sense? So I don't go, hi, I'm an evangelical, born-again, spirit-filled believer. Okay? I don't talk about that. And even in the word Christian is really interesting, because actually the institution of Christianity is not held in very high regard. So let's be aware of that bias that people have as we are trying to share our faith with people. I'm not suggesting we say I'm not a Christian, by the way. What I am suggesting is that we live in such a way that we change the view that people have of Christians, rather than enforcing the view that people have of Christians. I'm all about changing perceptions. I think it's so important. It's a big exercise, isn't it, to change people's perceptions. So let's live in such a way that people say, oh yeah, my friends are Christian. They're amazing. They're fantastic. They're so loving. They're so kind, or whatever that might be. So do your friends know that you're a Christian, and is that a good thing? So just maybe just today, just reflect over that a little bit. When my neighbours, friends, family think about me as a person, actually how do they view me? So it's a really good question to ask, I think. So that's the first one, assemble. I want to get people's attention. And so when we're communicating as well, we want to make sure that our words get people's attention. So we've got a lot of work to do on changing some of the language, which we'll unpack in a few moments' time. Okay, listen. By the side of the word listen, I want you to put the word interest. Whenever I stand up to speak in front of people, I try my absolute best within my power to be interesting. I work hard on communication. Now, if I'm not working hard enough, please let me know. But I am working hard on it. I'm trying to change the pace. I'm trying to bring a little bit of humor in there. I'm trying to get a bit interactive in the way that maybe I might ask questions. I'm trying to look at you if I think you're falling asleep. I'm not really. But I'm always trying to think, am I interesting? Now, the problem for the church is we're not very interesting. Are we? And that's because, well, to be interesting, you've got to have interests. And a lot of us don't have interests. So it's pretty impossible to be interesting. Makes it pretty tricky, doesn't it, really? And because our only interest is the church, because our whole life is revolved around it, then we've got very little in common with people outside of the church. So some of us need to start living a little bit more interesting lives. Don't know why I always felt I should emphasize the maybe it's that communication thing again, I don't know. But are you interesting? Because if you're not, the way you communicate the gospel won't be interesting. If the only experience you've got of life is just the church, all of your metaphor, all of your language, all of your parameters, your illustrations, your lenses, it's always going to be church-oriented. So you need to think, what do you like doing? Just do that a little bit more. And do that a little bit more amongst people that don't know Jesus. This is not about strategic interest so you can evangelize people. No. Please don't join a knitting group just so you can tell people about Jesus. That's called abuse. It is. It's called abusing people and relationships. If you like knitting, please do join a knitting club. And then just keep the antennae up. You'll be surprised at how God opens opportunities. Anyway, I'm not going to major too much on that. So interest. And then the next bit is what I call spiritual concern or spiritual content, whatever you want to call it. It's basically the message of the gospel. The message of the gospel about Jesus' death, or God's plan for our lives, the fact that we've done things to separate us from God. It's all of that, but it's also about the fact that Jesus loves people and he's really interested. Did you know that God is more interested in your finances than your bank manager? Did you know God's more interested in your health than your GP or the NHS, who are doing a phenomenal job right now? Of course they are. So I think we've got to demonstrate that and communicate that. That's why I love things like Christians Against Poverty. It makes a really powerful statement. So it's all of those things. Okay, I'm going to fly on. The next word is fear. In our communication, that doesn't mean that people shake, under the fear of God, although I'm not against that in principle or practice, if that's what happens. But it's more about, why do you fear something? Because you perceive it to be true or could be true. And so when people consider the reality of God, best done by applying our faith, so letting our faith shape how we live, as well as when we articulate it, to make sure we articulate it in normal language, in everyday life. That's why Jesus went around saying, a man did this, or a person went on a walk, or look at this bit of fruit. He tried to put it into everyday life. So we want to do that. That's the application. And then the final one is the response. But as I've said to you, that's not always about just going in for do you want to become a Christian? Do it now. It can be sometimes, do you want to find out more? Do you want to investigate? Maybe you could make a commitment to become open-minded. That's the whole ethos of big yes, little yes, healthy maybe. So that people have different ways that they can respond. You see, take the pressure off. We put a huge amount of unhelpful pressure on ourselves when sharing the gospel with people, particularly the gospel, maybe our testimony as well. But we feel like if we haven't got somebody signed, sealed, delivered and filling in a gift aid form in 5 minutes flat, we've somehow failed. Chill out. Just relax. Be comfortable with people who can get their head round one element of the gospel, but not another. I used to say, how many of you know when you're younger you say stupid stuff and then you grow up? I think it must be a rite of passage, mustn't it? And I used to say stupid things like, if you're not saying yes to God, you're saying no. Don't know why I felt I should put that bit on the end. But I did. But just because somebody's not saying yes to God, it doesn't mean they're saying no, rather. They could be saying, well, yeah, I can get my head round that, but I'm struggling with that. I need to process. No, you've got to receive it all. Well, they can't, because most people only receive when they understand. And so actually, let's journey with people. That's a lot of what the book, Big Yes, Little Yes, Healthy Maybe, talks about. Again, just for the sake of discipline, I'm not going to say too much more about that. So let's build into our evangelism these 5 key things, really important. Making the foundation, I assume that you pray, by the way. So, because I once gave this thing and somebody said, well, surely pray at the foundation. No. It is, of course it is. But on top, I've assumed you're praying, okay? Now that may be a big assumption, I realise that, but I'm not here to talk about prayer. So, assuming you're praying, the foundation, what we need to work really hard with is that we've got people's attention and then we're interesting as we talk about it. That's really, really critical. Because if we haven't got that, doesn't matter what we say, from there on in, we've not connected with people. We're not taking them on a journey. We're not going on a journey with them. Does that make sense? So that's a really important thing. So this is the aim, that we've got attention and interest. So we've really got people's awareness of us, of our faith, feeling positive. We're speaking in words they understand and connecting it with real life. So therefore we can share the gospel, apply it to their lives and give people an opportunity to respond. Really important. And then when we're sharing the gospel, we have to take some time to think about what we say. A foreign visitor asked a London cabbie to explain the rules of cricket. Good luck. The following explanation was offered. Cricket. Now you'll see why I'm going to read this. You have two sides, one out in the field and one in. Each man that's in the side that's in goes out, and when he's out, he comes in, and the next man goes in until he's out. When they are all out, the side that's out comes in, and the side that's been in goes out and tries to get those coming in out. Sometimes you get men still in and therefore not out. When both sides have been in and out, including the not outs, that's the end of the game. It's a brilliant description of cricket if you already know what cricket is. Those of you who know what cricket is about, you'll look, yeah, I recognise that. I understand. That's a brilliant description, Mark. Don't see what all the fuss is about. Those of you who are not interested in any way about cricket are probably not even interested in that. But you will look at that and go, that makes no sense at all. Yeah, fair point. Why am I telling you that? So often our content, it's all there, but it makes no sense at all to people that aren't Christians. To a Christian looking, we're all going, yeah, blood of the lamb. We get that. We get that. To a non-Christian who was on the streets of Devon many, many years ago, they're listening to a Christian going, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let me get this right. To become a Christian, you have to be washed in the blood of a lamb. This is a true life situation. The person actually vomited on the street. They're not looking and going, I love the theological symbolism there. See what you did, that's really clever, really clever. They're going, are you joking? Well, why would they think anything different? Because we've just stood up and there are some weird things around in the world and they've just heard to become a Christian, you have to be washed in the blood of a lamb. I mean, do you see what I'm saying? Language and phrases that we could have used 50, 60 years ago, which more people, and even in more recent times, some people may understand it, but concepts and phrases like that. So we've got to stop assuming knowledge that people have. You see, we may well think, that wasn't an easy phrase to say, we may well think, we've got it across. Yeah, I got the message across, but the person hasn't heard it. They've heard something completely different. And we think that we've got to use those metaphors. And if we don't use those metaphors and those words like repentance and blood of the lamb and sin, we haven't communicated the gospel. We've compromised it. I had this conversation with somebody once. I said, do you realize actually using some of these old-fashioned words means actually you're compromising the message? Why? Because what that person's hearing in their mind is not what you're trying to say. So we've really got to work hard on thinking about the way we communicate the gospel. So we've got to think about the content. So what is it we're trying to say? When I'm sharing the gospel with somebody, I talk about God's plan, our problem, our effort, God's solution, our response. Okay, that's what I talk about. I talk about the fact that God has a plan for human beings. Now you can disagree with me, by the way, because I'm big enough and old enough to handle disagreements. I've kind of got used to it, to be honest with you. But when I'm talking about God's plan, I stay away from debates about creation and evolution. I'm not saying there aren't places for that, but I stay away from that. Now, I say that as somebody who's a literal 6-day creationist. okay? And I do have these conversations with some people from time to time when it's appropriate. But I'll tell you what will happen. If you get caught up in creation and evolution, you will debate that all day long. I want to get to Jesus. That's what I want to get to. So now, please, feel free to completely disagree with me. I have no problem at all. I'm just talking from 34 years worth of experience. I've learned a few things along the line that actually I've really got into the place where I've been able to share the full gospel message. Whereas if I'd have got held up on hurdles that are unnecessary for people to jump across. Jesus didn't say, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead and subscribe to six-day creation, you will be saved. He didn't say that. Now, I think those are discipleship issues, not conversion issues, by the way. So I'm not saying they aren't things that we shouldn't journey through and examine. What I'm saying is, when I'm talking about God's plan, I talk about the fact that God has a plan for the world. In fact, I often say to people, let's not debate how we got here. I've got all on working out what I do now I am here. So I talk about God as a plan and that we would know him and love him and journey through life with him. Our problem is, and I don't go, but we've sinned. Sorry about that, young man. Didn't mean to make you jump. Apologies. I don't talk about that. I say our problem is that we have chosen to live life according to our plan, not God's plan. And that has disconnected us from God, so we don't even believe he exists. Now, if you're a little bit of a Christian who feels that you've got to mention the word sin, then you can say, in the Bible, there's a word, sin, and that's what that means. But what you've done is you've explained the concept, then used the word. Don't use the word first and then explain the concept. If you use the word first, people automatically put into their mind what they already think of that. So it's already filtered what you're going to say. So invert it. Explain the concept. Use the word. It's in the church all over it. So in one sense, we've got to use it. But let's not get hung up on it being a biblical word. It's not. It's a biblical doctrine. It's a word that was used in the medieval times to articulate falling short, missing the mark. It meant an archer who fired didn't get the bullseye, and when they missed the bullseye, they said to be a sinner. And so the Bible translations of that time said, oh, that's a great phrase to use to talk about missing the bullseye when it comes to God. So we might have to find different metaphors. Okay, but explain the concept, use the word. Okay. God's plan, our problem, our effort. Now, do you remember the bridge to life? Some of you will know that, where you've got God on one side and then man on the other side, okay? You can still use that, but change the word man to people, all right? So God, people. That's important, really, really important. So a little tweak here on how we've presented it. So God on one side, people on the other. Okay, and then you'll have seen the fact that you've got things like good works, prayers, charity, and we use that to talk about that doesn't get us to heaven, and then we write the word sin in the middle because sin stands between people and God. You're familiar with that bridge, okay? Right, okay, little tweak needed here. We live in a world that is more good works oriented than ever. And in fact, in truth be known, people outside of the church are often putting people inside of the church to shame by how much good works they do. They're not doing it because of any God focus, by and large. It's actually quite a humanistic focus, that this is how we behave as human beings. This is what we do. So we used to make the major point, your good works won't get you to God. And we think, great, this is a connection point. The truth is, your average person isn't doing the good works because they think it gets them to God. So if we say that, they're going to say, well, I'm not doing it for that reason. So that's all of a sudden become a disconnect. What we thought communicated back 20, 30 years ago, when more people were doing it because of a theistic worldview, then that was a good point to draw out. It's the doctrine. What is the doctrine? The doctrine is there is absolutely nothing that we can do that will get us to God. That's the doctrine, isn't it? The good works is just an illustration of the doctrine, but we've made that the main thing often. So when I'm talking about it, I said, do you know what? This is how I say it, because I want to connect with people. So it's like, take a little step back to culture, look at where culture is, hold hands with culture than take them forward to the truth. That's always what's in my brain. So I do this. We put a huge amount of effort into trying to make our lives make sense. But the truth is that our lives only make sense when God is in them. And there is nothing we can do that will get God into our lives. And then you can shoot off and give some bits of illustrations if you want, okay? Right, I am talking about 100 miles an hour here because I want to wind up pretty soon, okay? So that's our effort. God's solution. God's solution isn't the cross, it's Jesus. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And in our evangelism, we only ever introduce people to the death of Jesus and occasionally birth. Imagine you met me on the day I was born and the day I was died. How can you make a decision about what I was like as a person? It's impossible. So you want to meet the person. So let's make sure we don't hold back. It's not a pendulum swing here. We don't hold back from talking about the cross. But we need to ramp up talking about Jesus a whole lot more and giving space for people to meet Jesus. I could say lots about that, but I'm not going to. So that's God's solution, is Jesus. And then we talk about his death, which was for our forgiveness, and his new life, his resurrection, which was for new life. So let's make sure we communicate that. And then our response. Now, I'm going to whiz through these, and then I'm going to say a few more things, and then I'm done. Okay, so, is that all right, Pastor? Cool. So, I want to challenge you to learn 5 Bible verses, 1 for each point of the gospel. Okay, now most people, when I do this in Bootcamp full, quite a few people get 1. It's John 3:16. Very few people get 2. Rarely does a person get 3. And once in 34 years, somebody got 5, and he wasn't the pastor. I know. Shock horror. Okay? So, I want to challenge you to... So, I'm going to tell you the verses for 2 reasons. Number 1, because I want to show off. Number 2, I want to prove to you that I'm not asking you to do something that I haven't done myself, okay? So, just jot down the references, not the verses, because that will take time. So, I'm not going to look at the notes, all right? Just so I saw you glance towards your iPad here. Okay, God's plan. Okay, Jeremiah 29:11, I use, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Our problem, Isaiah 53:6, I use this one, we all like sheep have gone astray. Each has turned to his own way. I like that because it just connects with that first thing, gone astray from God's plan, okay? If you get the next one, you can have 2 points because it's 2 verses for our effort. For it is by grace that you have been saved through faith. This is not of yourselves, it's the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. Ephesians 2:8-9. The next one I use for God's solution, you can have it if you want. Okay, go on, John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, so that whoever believes in him will not die, but will have eternal life. And then the final one, I love this one, John 1:12. To as many as received him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. I like that because it's believing and receiving, and talks about the family of God. Challenge you to learn those 5 verses, many of them that you know anyway. Delivery is really important, how we say it. Don't forget the key words, really, really important. Attention and interest. Okay, this is it then. Ready? We're doing kick down in automatic here and accelerating over the next few moments. Okay, so say it with words they understand. Not blood of the lamb. Okay, we don't want that. Okay, not blood of the lamb. How can you communicate the message of the gospel without using religious words and in ways that people understand? Exercise for you at home. Okay, say it with the Bible. Don't say, did you know John chapter 14 verse 6 says? Because they're going, who's John 14:16? What a weird name. Okay, just say it says in the Bible and say where it says it, but learn where it says it so you can show somebody as well. Really important. And there's something quite powerful about learning Bible verses. It refers to an ancient Jewish practice of meditating. We're losing the power of meditation, scriptural meditation, because we know how to Google. It doesn't say in the Old Testament, Google this verse day and night. It says meditate Don't let it depart from you. Don't let your smartphone depart from you. Don't let the verse depart from you. Okay, say it with the Bible. Say it with story. So when you're articulating a truth, what is a story, an illustration like Jesus did that you can use to get the thing across, to communicate more to people? Say it with personal story. So if you've got a real example of something that happened in your life, use that to articulate it, because people are basically nosy. So that's a win-win. Keeps the attention, keeps the interest, changes the pace, because you're not preaching at people, you're just sharing a little story in dialogue. Okay, and then say it with your personal story, your testimony, any gospel truth that you communicate, show how you understand that truth to be the case as well in your own personal life. So say it with your personal story. Okay, buy the resources, they'll really, really help you. One final thing, and then I'm done. It looks like I've taken longer, but it did start a little bit later than what we were going to start. So I'm actually, roughly speaking, on time. Okay, it's all right. That's bad, but it's true, all right? Not that I ever feel the need to defend myself in any way, shape, or form. I think that's clear, right? Okay, let me just say one final thing, and then I'll sit down. So my wife said to me one day, and this is really important. My wife said to me one day, I'm going out. It was the Six Nations, my favourite time of the year. I was watching a rugby match. Emma said to me, I bought these 10 plants. Can you plant them? So I thought, no problem. So I waited for the half-time, and I went out, and in less than 10 minutes, I planted these plants. Emma came home midway through the second half. She said, I don't suppose you've got those plants done? I said, I have, love. There you go. And then she went out, and she came back in, and she gave what I call the spousal glare. What you're going to get in a few moments, sir, because you put your hand up, okay? It's the spousal glare. It can be like this, but it can also be like this. And she came in, gave me the spousal glare. I thought, I've done something. She said, I thought you said you planted these plants. I said, I love them. They're all in. Absolutely smashed it, love. All 10. She said, it's really badly done. She said, they're not planted at all. I said, love, they are. I did it myself. And this is what she said, killer blow. She said, you were in such a rush to plant all 10, you didn't plant one. Okay. She's supposed to take your time, make sure it's planted right. She gave me a lecture. Sometimes in our evangelism, we can be so keen to plant the gospel, plant everything. We don't plant anything. Where do you start sharing the gospel? Listen to a person's narrative. If they're wrapped up in guilt, can I suggest you don't start talking about sin with them, but you start by talking about the liberty and freedom that Jesus brings. Get that one planted. If they lack self-worth and value, start by talking about Jesus' love for them. Get that one planted, and then you can journey with them at the other points. God bless. Hope that's been helpful. Jason.
Amazing. That was good, wasn't it? That was good. Thank you so much, Mark. Learned lots. Been reminded of so much more. And I just want to say, over the next 4 weeks, we're not here to try and kind of tickle your sermon need that you need. We really want to equip you. We really want to excel in this area in our life. So this week, think about it. Maybe try a little bit of it. We'll put it on YouTube as well, so you can go back over it again. But let's pray, and then we'll crack on. Yes, so Father, I want to thank you so much that we have such great news to share. God, I thank you that many of us in this room have experienced your life-changing love. But Lord, would you help us communicate that to the people around us? God, would you help us do it in a loving, kind, and understandable way? And Lord, I just pray that you would bring to mind many of those points as we go in our week this week. In Jesus' name we thank you. Amen.
Thanks for joining us today. We really pray that this message has encouraged you wherever you're at in your relationship with God. If you want to get in touch, we would love to find out if God has been speaking to you, or if you want to find out any more information, all the links are down below.